Over the past several thousand years, people have reported seeing strange spiritual entities lurking around ancient ruins all across the world. Examples include the wandering demons encountered in ancient Egyptian ruins, to nomads being chased by jinn during their journeys through desert ruins, as well as the kakodaimones in the ancient ruins of Greece, and the alux, who hide in the forests near Mesoamerican ruins, and the mangled shadows who prowl around Angkor Wat, and Agris and Kibioli, and even the ancient structures in New England. These sightings have been documented extensively, and there's no doubt that there are disturbing entities lurking around ruins all across the world. But something that most people never delve into is what these entities really are, why they present themselves in the way they do, and why are they lurking around these ancient ruins. In this video, we're going to be examining the historical reports of the bizarre and disturbing spirits haunting ancient ruins, and piece together what these entities truly are. Ancient spirits persistently haunt their former dwellings, and they do not treat new occupants kindly. When people moved back to Egypt during their resettlement after the worldwide cataclysm, they proceeded to reoccupy the megalithic structures that still stood in the region, but they were terrorized on a regular basis by the spirits of pre-flood entities, who have been very protective of what they still consider to be their territory, and they have nothing but disdain for humans. The Egyptians referred to these spirits as wandering demons, and described them as resembling monstrous human-animal hybrids. The Egyptian people documented more than 4,000 different wandering demons who resided in all of the pre-flood structures in Egypt alone. These demons were not worshipped or honored by the Egyptians, but rather feared, and the Egyptians attempted to combat them using various means. The names that these demons were given are also pretty disturbing too, such as blood drinker who comes from the slaughterhouse, or backwards facing one who comes from the abyss. The wandering demons were said to cause mental and physical illness, as well as sleep paralysis, and they were able to shapeshift into various forms to mislead and frighten people. People in modern times visiting the Egyptian ruins have also reported seeing shadow people and distorted spirits wandering in the desert. People exploring the Great Pyramids have frequently seen dark humanoid shapes that flicker in and out of sight, and they hear disembodied whispering. The ancient ruins, which are claimed to have the most paranormal activity, are the Valley of the Kings, Karnak, Luxor, the Pyramid of Titi at Saqqara, and the Red Pyramid at Dashur. During their time in Egypt, the Greeks also reported seeing evil spirits that they called kakodaimones, or kakodemons, roaming throughout many of the ancient structures in Egypt. Most notably, Kom el Shokafa and the Thebes ruins. The kakodaimones described by the Greeks were very much the same entities as Egypt's wandering demons, being monstrous, malevolent spirits that attempted to bring misfortune to any humans in their vicinity. These evil spirits were described in depth by several Greek scholars, including Plato, Empedocles, and Homer. Like the wandering demons, the kakodaimones were also known to shapeshift and manifest themselves in an unexpected, intrusive, and frightening way. The Greeks reported kakodaimones and similar spirits, which were more feminine, that they called the Keres, residing in pre-flood structures in Greece as well. The Mycenaean Acropolis of Tiryns, the treasury of Atreus, and the rock-cut caves of Pan were especially noted for their wandering malevolent spirits. The Keres were also said to linger at crossroads, marked by statues and piles of stone. The ruler of the Keres, Hecate, was also summoned by witches at crossroads in Greece, mirroring the later instances of people, such as Johann Faust and Robert Johnson, summoning evil entities for knowledge at crossroads. The Keres were also known for hovering over violent places where battles and epidemics occurred, as they enjoyed watching humans suffer and perish. Like the wandering demons of Egypt, who thirsted for blood, but could not satisfy their desires because they were spirits and no longer physical entities. The Caries also desired to drink humans' blood, but they were unable to do so physically. Interestingly, the Chinese have long had legends about evil spirits called the Jiangshi, or the hopping vampires. Like the Caries, the Jiangshi too have a thirst for human blood, but they're unable to physically drink blood because they exist as spirits. So rather than sucking blood, they're said to feed off of humans' qi, or life force. The Jiangshi are said to lurk around where humans are close to their demise, and they try to weaken the humans by absorbing their qi. When a human perishes, the Jiangshi possesses their bodies so that they can have a physical husk, and then they're able to proceed to stiffly leap around, looking for living humans to attack, and then try to physically drink their blood. The Jiangshi have been reported lurking around ancient ruins in China, typically in the Hunan province. Visitors to the Moangdui and Daoyintu archaeological sites take special precautions to not become the victims of Jiangshi, specifically by wielding mirrors called the baka, which are said to appall the Jiangshi when they see their disgusting appearances in the mirror. The Jiangshi are also warded off by fire, so travelers often carry torches with them for protection. The Chinese people state that it's impossible to pin down the exact origins of the Jiangshi legend because rumors of their existence have been prevalent for such a long time, possibly since the Great Flood. Chichen Itza in Mexico is another archaeological site where supernatural activities have been reported. Back when tourists were allowed to enter the Pyramid of Kukulkan, they often reported seeing shadow people. The tour guides at Chichen Itza also claim that the site is infested with quote-unquote enraged ghosts that inhabit the ruins, as well as the nearby sinkhole. The post-cataclysmic Mayans, who settled around the ruins of Chichen Itza, also experienced paranormal activity, frequently seeing and communicating with ancient entities that they falsely perceived to be gods. Near the ruins of Chichen Itza, there are dense forests. Both the Mayans and modern visitors have reported seeing mischievous, protective spirits called the alux, who are said to guard the forests and ancient ruins. Those who claim to have seen the alux say that they can suddenly vanish and reappear, and that they're able to shapeshift into various forms, but that they usually have glowing eyes and disproportionate limbs. The alux are known to throw rocks at people to keep them away, but they also lure people to dangerous locations, such as cliffs. And other types of spirits, which have been sighted not just around Chichen Itza, but other Mayan ruins, including Zunantunec in Belize, shapeshift into the form of beautiful women wearing white dresses, but they have red eyes, and they attempt to lure men to cliffs and other dangerous locations. Visitors often make the mistake of taking rocks from these ancient sites home with them as souvenirs, but according to these people's reports, doing so can enable the ancient spirits at these sites, who have latched onto the stones, to be taken home. One tourist stated that they had returned back to the resort that they were staying at in Mexico after visiting Chichen Itza, and they had taken a rock from Chichen Itza with them as a souvenir. But this tourist claims that after they had fallen asleep at the resort that night, they woke up and there were 3 shadow people in the room. The phenomenon of people experiencing hauntings after taking rocks from ancient sites is remarkably common. Folklore going back thousands of years, not just in Mesoamerica, but all across the world, warns against collecting rocks from ancient sites. The rocks are considered to be cursed, and some of them are said to harbor evil spirits. Easter Island is well known for its cursed rocks, with tourists who collect specimens from the island making similar claims about being followed home by the evil spirits who haunt the island. Many visitors even claim that they feel afraid of the moai heads themselves, and not because of their appearance. It's been commonly reported that there is a very sinister aura throughout the island that concentrates around the ancient structures and statues there. Even more creepy than isolated ghost encounters, some tourists have claimed that they felt like there was a crowd of people around them, even when there were only a few visitors in their vicinity. If there's any merit to these people's feelings, it could indicate that there's a high population of spirits who haunt Easter Island. These ancient entities, many of which died during the worldwide flood, might be under the impression that Easter Island is the only place not still submerged, so they stay there instead of wandering to other places. In the depths of Ecuador's Amazon rainforest, there are cave entrances hidden under the brush. These tunnels extend dozens of kilometers beneath the earth, and they've been explored by the local tribespeople called the Shuar over the past several centuries. The Shuar tribespeople of Ecuador have long regarded the Cueva de los Tallos as a source of hidden knowledge, but also as a place of supernatural phenomena. Within these dark, winding passages, the Shuar have described encounters with ominous spiritual entities. These entities are believed to be guardians of ancient relics hidden inside the caves. These figures are usually described as having unusual proportions, such as elongated limbs, as well as glowing red eyes. These spirits are said to emerge primarily in areas of the cave that are less accessible, in the deeper chambers, and hidden passages inside the caves. Over the past several hundred years, curious tribespeople have climbed down into the caves, and discovering hordes of artifacts, they proceeded to collect them. But invariably, the Shuar told their elders that they had been telepathically warned by strange entities hiding in the shadows that they needed to leave. But the tribespeople generally would not listen until the entities finally revealed themselves in a grotesque form and chased them out. Taking note of these reports, the Shuar shamans began performing ceremonies in the Tallos caves to attract the entities' attention in order to gain knowledge, guidance, and assistance in their soothsaying endeavors. Because the Shuar became familiar to these entities, they were allowed to remove many of the ancient relics from inside the caves. And they gave the relics that they collected to an Italian Catholic priest visiting Ecuador, named Carlo Crespi Croce, or Father Crespi. News about these artifacts that the Shuar tribespeople had found inside the Tallos caves spread rapidly after Father Crespi reported these discoveries to the Catholic Church. And Father Crespi himself said that he believed that these artifacts were pre-flood. Catching wind of these bizarre pre-flood relics that had been hidden deep within the Tallos caves, an explorer from Hungary named Janos Morix, who adopted the name Juan Morix during his travels to Ecuador, conducted a thorough investigation into the Tallos caves in order to search for more. Delving deep into the Tallos caves, he eventually reached an artificial chamber that contained a polished stone desk and large books made of gold that were engraved with what resembled cuneiform. Disturbingly, Morix said that when he approached the stone desk, 4 entities that for some reason he assumed were aliens suddenly appeared and spoke to Morix telepathically, admiring his courage and cleverness to find one of the secret chambers where their knowledge was stored. These entities who confronted Juan Morix are the same spirits who the Shuar tribespeople had warned were hiding inside the Tallos caves. Juan Morix had likely misinterpreted these entities as aliens due to their grotesquely distorted appearances and their ability to communicate telepathically, which was promoted as an ability of aliens in popular sci-fi movies during the 1950s and 1960s, which Morix had most likely seen, such as Invaders from Mars, The Cosmic Man, and Planet of the Vampires. But the Shuar made it clear that these entities deep within the Tallos caves are not aliens at all. They're interdimensional ancient entities from Earth. In 1976, a joint expedition between the British and Ecuadorian governments was organized by a prominent archaeologist and engineer from Scotland named Stan Hall in order to investigate the claims that Juan Morix had made about the so-called Metal Library and the intraterrestrials who had cornered him. The astronaut Neil Armstrong was also recruited for the mission to act as the honorary president. Armstrong's well-funded expedition team mapped out over 12 miles or 20 kilometers of expansive passages and chambers deep underground, and they methodically scoured the underground chambers for any remaining pre-flood relics or structures. And of the discoveries that the team publicly reported were various artifacts. Armstrong's expedition team likely cleared out the caves and had any relics of importance brought to national archives for preservation purposes, or in other words, to prevent the public from having evidence that they ever existed, just as a large portion of the artifacts gifted to Father Crespi by the Schwar were also brought to the Vatican archive for preservation purposes. According to local legends, Agrasen Ki Baioli in India is said to be haunted by a swarm of evil entities who stalk visitors, whisper to them, and hide around corners, silently watching people who are walking around. People visiting Agrasen Ki Baioli have seen dark figures with red eyes and mangled limbs, similar to some of the more disturbing entities depicted in ancient temples throughout India. The most well-known legend about Agrasen Ki Baioli that tends to keep visitors away is called Black Water. Much like Rani Ki Vav, Agrasen Ki Baioli was also a destroyed pre-cataclysmic structure that was rebuilt in the 1300s, and the people who rebuilt it decided to use it as a stepwell, and therefore they flooded it. Back when Agrasen Ki Baioli was newly reconstructed, people went there to collect water, and they began seeing these demons who were understandably furious about being flooded again, having died initially during the Great Flood. And these demons, rather than letting humans force them out of their home, they decided to retaliate by tormenting and hypnotizing the people who visited, successfully luring many people into the water and drowning them. This has been happening for hundreds of years, since Agrasen Ki Baioli was reconstructed, with the most recent documented incident having been in 2007. Even though Agrasen Ki Baioli looks very beautiful after its renovation, it's not frequented by most of the locals because of its reputation. Heading to the southeast, the Kakanmath Temple in India is an ancient structure that had been destroyed long ago due to earthquakes and flooding. In the 11th century, the locals of Madhya Pradesh, who lived near the still scattered debris, had reported that they saw spirits lurking around the ruins. The locals still fear the spirits, and they still see them frequently, hence why the site doesn't tend to get a lot of visitors. Another location with a seemingly dense population of wandering spirits is Angkor Wat in Cambodia. People native to the area have legends of spirits called Nang Tani, who shapeshift into the form of beautiful women in order to lure men to dangerous areas. But not all of these spirits disguise their forms and intentions. One local reported that he had been suddenly grabbed by a 10-foot-tall demon while he was walking around Angkor Wat, and many other people have seen the same types of shadow people darting around the ruins. It's believed by many of the locals that these spirits haunting Angkor Wat are the apsaras and yakshas. These supernatural entities are said to be capable of transforming their appearances, and they're also able to manifest themselves physically. These spirits have been likened to merpeople and fairies, who often disguise themselves as beautiful and benevolent, but usually they have questionable intentions towards humans. Beneath the sand and aridosols in the Arabian desert lay numerous ancient ruins yet to be excavated. The Salute archaeological site is touted as a newly discovered ancient settlement, which was only excavated in 2004 during the Italian mission to Oman. The paranormal activity in the nearby village of Bala has been extensively documented. The reason why the town has been targeted by spirits rather than the ruins surrounding it is because the ruins have all been buried up until recently, so the spirits who haunted these sites gravitated towards the nearest settlement. The villagers of Bala have reported seeing all sorts of bizarre paranormal activity in the area for hundreds of years. They've seen bramble in the surrounding desert spontaneously combust, shape-shifting spirits transforming from men into donkeys, Many villagers have been accused of witchcraft and consorting with the spirits roaming around the village. And children have also reported that jinn tried to lure them away from the village while they were playing outside. The ruins of Petra in Jordan are not as rosy as they seem on the surface. According to the nomadic Bedouin tribes who have traveled through Petra for thousands of years, hordes of jinn are known to haunt these ruins as well. The jinn are known to lurk in the depths of the ruins, and they do not take kindly to travelers who stray too deep into their territory. The Bedouin nomads who have traveled the deserts surrounding ancient ruins, including Petra, have long held a belief in the existence of the jinn. The jinn are powerful and unpredictable spirits who exist in a parallel dimension to humans. These entities are considered to be both protective and vengeful, and they are known to cause harm to those who tread too deeply into the ruins of Petra. These jinn are often depicted as invisible spirits, but they can also take on monstrous, terrifying forms when they interact with humans. It's also believed that the jinn enjoy tormenting humans by playing tricks on them, causing people to hear things that are not there, typically by whistling or making strange whispering sounds. One of the most terrifying forms of the jinn, described by the Bedouin, is when these spirits transform into large predators to stalk and prey on humans. The nomads have recounted stories of traveling through the desert, only to find themselves pursued by wild animals that appear grotesquely disproportioned, with glowing red eyes. These animals suddenly vanish, before reappearing in another direction, and they are unnaturally determined to ward off or attack travelers. Modern visitors to Petra have also reported seeing bizarre, shadowy figures in the depths of the ruins, particularly in the royal tombs and the Sikh. Some encounters with the jinn, especially in the more remote areas near Petra, are described as instances of spiritual assault and even possession. The jinn are capable of taking control of a person's body and minds, causing them to act erratically or even violently. People who have been camping near Petra and exploring the ruins reported that they have suddenly fallen into trances and overcome by violent fits of rage or uncontrollable laughter. And the person begins to speak in a distorted, deep voice, speaking in an unknown ancient language, as the one really speaking is the jinn who has taken control of their body. New England is a region in the northeastern United States where over 100,000 miles of ancient stone walls are scattered, as well as an unnumbered amount of dolmens, cairns, and stone chambers. These structures were built long before the European settlers had arrived, including the Vikings, and the Native Americans themselves have insisted that they did not build them, and that these stone structures were there when the Native Americans had arrived to the area many centuries ago. The Native Americans avoided these ruins, even though they would have made excellent shelters and animal pens, because they said that they were cursed and haunted. The natives reported seeing evil spirits hiding deep in the forests, where these ancient stone structures in New England are. These entities were called the Bugwudji by the Wampanoag Indians in New England. The Bugwudji were described as elusive, mischievous, humanoid spirits, and they had the ability to shapeshift and vanish, indicating that they were spirits. The Bugwudji were said to live in the woods, and they were known to play tricks and even harm those who disturbed them. Much more disturbing than the Bugwudji, the Algonquin and Iroquois Indians who lived in New England reported seeing a shape-shifting, gigantic, emaciated spirit with fiery eyes. This is the spirit that they call the Wendigo, and the natives said that it stalked humans through the woods. It's commonly believed that the Wendigo itself ate humans, but the original descriptions from the Native Americans state that the Wendigo spirit possessed humans, and then caused these possessed people under its control to attack other humans and eat them. In its spirit form, the Wendigo is unable to physically attack and eat people, but once it possesses a human, it's able to get its fill, much like the jiangshi described by the Chinese. The Wendigo spirit especially preyed on tribespeople hunting for food in the winter because the hunters were more mentally and physically tired, and they had trouble running away through the deep snow, whereas the spirit had no trouble approaching its victim because it could pass right through the snow. The Wendigo have been seen in other areas, such as the Great Lake region, central Canada, and the North Woods of Minnesota, but the Wendigo legends originated with the Eastern Algonquin and Eastern Iroquois tribes. People hiking and driving alongside these ancient stone walls and chambers have reported encountering all kinds of bizarre entities and other phenomena, including Bigfoot, UFOs, enormous dogs with glowing red eyes, and vanishing troll-like humanoids who were often accompanied by a tall, dark figure described as a shadow person. There's a general consensus among people who live in southern New England that the forests, even near developed areas, feel as though there's an evil energy all over the place. In the Freetown Fall River State Forest of Massachusetts, which also contains several miles of ancient stone walls, chambers, and cairns, campers and hikers exploring the 5,000-acre forest have reported hearing the sound of a calliope playing music and a chorus of children singing deep in the woods, most frequently around sunset. And those who have investigated out of curiosity as to whether some sort of event was occurring were greeted by either shadow people or small shape-shifting humanoid figures. Something very important to note is that there had been upwards of an estimated 240,000 miles of ancient stone walls across New England before the region was urbanized, and now only 100,000 miles of stone walls are left. That means that nearly all of the cities in New England were built where these ancient structures used to be. The settlers also saw demonic entities and experienced all sorts of paranormal activities during their colonization of New England. The most well-known event revolving around the overwhelming demonic presence in New England are the Salem witch trials that occurred during the late 1600s, which occurred not only in Salem, Massachusetts, but also in Andover, Gloucester, Ipswich, and numerous other villages in the region. Going back to the 1300s in Europe, there had been an outbreak of women in Germany, France, and Switzerland being targeted by demonic entities who had tempted them into demonic pacts associated with witchcraft. The Catholics, who were trying to fight off occultism, which includes pagan practices such as witchcraft, began conducting witch purges. Many of Europe's women guilty of practicing witchcraft fled to America during the 16 and 1700s in order to escape persecution. However, not everyone who settled in New England was accepting of occultism. In areas such as Salem, the Puritans did not take witchcraft lightly. And when they saw the women practicing witchcraft, they had to conduct another major witch purge. These witches were known for consorting with all sorts of demonic entities in New England's secluded forests, where they would perform rituals, dance, and do other illicit activities with the evil spirits native to the land that appeared as shadow people, shape-shifting spirits that they called familiars, as well as imps and winged satyrs, all of which are spirits that have been sighted by Native Americans and modern people throughout New England.